Welcome back, everybody. Today's featured magazine review is going to be Guitar for the Practicing Musician. This is the Judas Priest, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton issue, which was released March of 1984. As you well know, we've already covered the middle to the end of 1983. Now we're at the beginning of 1984. Heavy metal, the beginning of 80s metal, is in full swing. We all know it broke out with Quiet Riot, Def Leppard, and Motley Crue in 1983. Now we're well into the beginning of 1984, and you got bands coming out, which we're going to cover as 1984 progresses. But this issue focuses on Judas Priest, KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. If you haven't already, click subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow me. Any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. And also, I'm going to go through these issues. We're going to talk about them, discuss obviously go over the magazine, look at the ads, look at the articles and the features and whatnot, look at the photos and comment, goof on whatever we want to goof on, whatever. Look at the bands that were popular of that year, that month. But if there's any interview that I'm going to go over, like this is the interview with KK Downing. And if any of you are interested, per se, if you want to go out and find the actual magazine, most of these magazines you can find used online on eBay, where I got a lot of my magazines. But you can find these magazines on eBay. People sell them anywhere from $7.95 up to $50 or more, depending on the value or the issue. But long story short, I'm going to go over page by page. We're going to comment on these magazines. But if there's a specific interview that is or in these magazines that you would like me to cover in more detail, I'll be more than happy to do a follow-up video and just showcase the interview, and we can go over the interview and I'll read it aloud, and we can discuss the interview as it happened back in that particular year. So long story short, if I go over the magazine and we encounter an interview with this person or artist, band, whatever, and you're interested in it, but you don't want to go out and buy the magazine, but you want to know what the interview was about, I'll be more than happy to make a short little video of just the interview. So let me know if you want that in the future. If not, we're just going to go through page by page. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So here's the cover of the March edition of Guitar for the Practicing Musician, released in 1984. This has Judas Priest. See my cursor. Geddy Lee of Rush. And what makes this magazine great, it has a lot of sheet music, tabs. And this particular issue has Tom Sawyer, Living After Midnight, Rock of Ages, Breaking the Law, After Midnight with Eric Clapton, and Bassline. All right, we got Plus, Def Leppard, Loverboy. We love Loverboy. Aztec Camera, kind of new wave band, and John Lee Hooker. Again, Guitar for the Practicing Musician is not per se a heavy metal magazine, but basically it's a guitar magazine. So if you're a guitarist and new wave, rock, progressive rock, blues, jazz, whatever, you're going to be in this magazine. But 1984 was the year of new wave and heavy metal. So this issue is Judas Priest, KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton. All right, let's go ahead and open her up. And there we go. We got Get Bookin', Proteus Rocks. These are songbooks. You want to learn the songs and the issues and sheet music. These books back then in 1984, you would basically order these and you can learn your favorite songs. All right, I've already commented this like maybe 4 times already, but G&L paid some serious money advertising for this particular Guitar for the Practicing Musician, because they always have this one page of the Cavalier model of G&L guitars. My question is, where are the other models? Where are the other colors? I'm sure they have other style of guitars, G&L, other colors and models and whatnot, but this is like the same guitar month after month after month, and I'm tired of Cavalier. G&L, I am tired of this ad. It's ugly. This is the ugly guitar, but let me know if you like this guitar. So, but if you've already seen this guitar, you would think they would advertise other models. Right, so here we go, departments, contents, and whatnot. Articles, features, guitar sheet music, bass line, bass wars, and so forth. So this is what this issue has. All right, what makes this magazine great better than most is Guitar gives you all of this. So you're going to have sheet music, articles, more sheet music, more articles, and columns, and more articles from other guitar players, bass articles in this for the practicing musician. So you're going to have a lot. You're going to have $12.50 worth of sheet music in every magazine. So other magazines just give you articles and photos and advertisements. This gives you sheet music of a lot of the famous songs that were popular of that era or that month. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. All right, here's a nice poster for Huey Lewis. This would be the staples right here or over here. You just pull it out, put it on your wall or your locker room. But Huey Lewis was big in 1984. Fastway. A lot of people call this the poor man's Led Zeppelin, but when Fastway came out, say what you will, that song kicks ass. Whenever you hear Say What You Will, you got to turn it up. And they sounded really good. I like them. What's that damn movie? I forgot the damn movie. But they did the soundtrack for some like rock and roll heavy metal Halloween movie. And it was awesome. They did the whole soundtrack, I believe. But the lead singer, everybody compared him to Robert Plant. But they weren't a copycat of Led Zeppelin. He just had some good vocal range. And he sounded like Robert Plant. But the band as a whole, Fastway, was awesome. So check out Fastway on YouTube. I'm sure you can find their albums and videos. They're good. All right. Who didn't like Boy George? Yes, he was gay and he wore makeup and he was weird and he stood out from everybody else and people called him the F word and blah, blah, blah. But he was good looking with the makeup. He had #1 hits. I think he had several close to #1 hits, if not #1 hits. He was always at the top of the charts, well ahead of the curve of the game. Other new wave bands were wearing heavy makeup, but you can't knock it because what were metal bands doing? Well, during the middle 80s, guys were starting to wear a lot more makeup. Some trying to look like women, like Pretty Boy Floyd, Poison. They look like women, but they look good, but they were playing heavy metal. Here's Boy George wearing a couple, some mascara, foundation, lipstick. He looked like a woman, but oh, look, he's gay and blah, 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 blah. But I'm not knocking it. I like Boy George. I like his music, Culture Club. So Boy George was a force in 1984. Love him or hate him, he was good. Eric Clapton, there he is. Eric Clapton, the man. He's here in his probably early mid-40s right here. Eric Clapton, 1984, or late 30s. Probably mid-late 30s right here. So this is Eric Clapton. All right. And again, we're going to go through these sheet music really fast and real quick. This is 1984. So all these sheet musics that I'm going to go through, I'm sure you can find them on, just Google it. I'm sure you can find sheet musics on many of your famous bands, artists, whatever. Type in the song. You'll either find it on YouTube, someone giving a lesson with tabs, without tabs, or you'll find the sheet music on Google. All right, so we're just going to go ahead. When we see the sheet music, we're going to go by pretty quickly. All right, because if you want me to upload this, I can, but I'm pretty much certain you can find all these songs that are in these issues on Google or YouTube. All right, so back in 1984, I never heard of these strings, but this was the Gibson Grabbers, right? Because they grab, and the classic, the easiest strings you'll ever string, new Gibson Grabbers. The express route to great sound, get in tune, fewer turns, a firm grip on quality. I don't know if they still make Grabbers, but back in 84, they were trying to sell the Gibson Grabbers. I never played Gibson, I never played Fender. I always had Diodario or Ernie Ball strings. Or, what was the other one? Jordan, GHS? I forgot the other strings. All right, so here's letters from the editor. Nice little ad for a Samson microphone singing. Moving, then stick it. More letters to the editor. DiMarzio was making acoustic pickups right here for the guitar. All right, more letters. Dear Guitar Magazine. I have read a lot of music magazines, and I have to say that yours is the best. So this is from Tony Wright from Decatur, Illinois. So he basically wrote a little letter, posted it, put a stamp on it, mailed it, and he wrote, Dear Guitar. So that's what you did back then. All right, whoever heard of the Dynamite comes in small packages? This is from PB. Have you ever seen this beast? Look at this. It's a mixer amp. Pretty nice. packs a powerful punch, but it's a mixer amp with all the bells and whistles. This is very new and big in 1984. All right, so band rehearsal part 1, open ears. Steve Morse was a regular contributor to the magazine, so he always had articles. So again, if there's any particular article or interview in these magazines that, hey Tony, I want to go over this interview, can you repost it? I will post strictly the interview, and I'll read it out loud, and we can discuss the interview. So here's In the Listening Room with Def Leppard in 1983. On the Radio with Peter Gordon. All right. Rock of Ages, again, more sheet music for Rock of Ages. And back then, you were watching them on MTV, and if you wanted to learn how to play the songs, this magazine would be great. Oh, I want to learn Rock of Ages. You would learn the chords. These are the tabs, sheet music right there, and you would learn it. This is Bass in the 80s by Tom T-Bone Walk, and he was the bass player for, I believe, Hall & Oates. In this case, he is showing you Obladi Oblada, the bass lines. Dun, 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 boom, 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 boom. And that's a great song, one of the best songs of the Beatles. Right, article, John Lee Hooker on songwriting by Bruce Pollock. More of the article. Navy Wireless is pretty big back in 1984. Guitar Secrets, the pull-off. This is Rick Derringer. Look him up on YouTube. Great guitar player. Back in the 70s, there was like a ton of great guitar players in the 70s. And they're all, elbowing each other. Not for top dog, but they all had their own distinct chops. A lot of great guitar players from the 70s. And we all gravitated to our own, either Steve Howe from Yes, Ace Frehley of Kiss, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, Alex Lifeson Rush, Ted Nugent, all these Ronnie Montrose. We had all these Rick Derringer, not Rick Wakeman, that's the keyboardist. I forgot other bands. Oh, Peter Frampton. Long story short, Joe Perry. A lot of great guitar players in the 70s. Even Neil Schon and Carlos Santana. But one guitar player came out in 1978 and blew doors and blew everybody away, put everybody on notice. The King was here in 1978, and that was Eddie Van Halen. So while everybody was playing their little blues rock pentatonics, Eddie Van Halen came out with every lick, trick in the book, and it's like, whoa. So, but look, in 1984, there he is, giving his little article right here called Pull-Ups. All right, what's next? All right, guitar questions with Barry Littman right here. What's next? All right, now I found this interesting. This has Bass Wars. Remember the last issue had Guitar Wars? So they're saying, let's put Bill Wyman up with Nick Lowe, Geddy Lee versus Rick James, Jack Bruce versus Tony Levin. These are the brackets of round 1. Roger Glover versus Phil Lynott. John Entwistle and Gene Simmons. I think John Entwistle will blow him away. John Wetton, Greg Lake, Rick Savage and Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. John Paul Jones and Mike Levin. Let's see. We got Paul McCartney versus Ross Valerie. Roger Waters versus Mike Rutherford. Paul Simonon versus Tina Weightmouth. Rudy Sarzo versus Geezer Butler. That would be a great guitar or bass war duo. Sting versus James and Jamerson. Chris Squire versus Jeff Berlin. Jaco Pastori. Stanley Clark. Phil Lesh and Jack Cassidy. Basically back then, you would submit your name, phone number, address, mail it in as to who you would think would win each bracket, who would win. And out of this bracket, I would have to put, as far as technical ability, out of this bracket, let's see, I would put Chris Squire and Rudy Sarzo coming out over here. And I'd probably give it to Chris Squire. And over here, I'd probably give it to Geddy Lee. So I'd probably put Geddy Lee and Chris Squire battling it out. So that's pretty cool bass wars right there. All right, again, Play It Like It Is. Sheet music right here. Here you go. Billy Squire, 38 Special, Judas Priest, Molly Hatchet, Def Leppard. All right, now look at this guitar. I think Michelangelo Battio had this guitar. I could be wrong, but this is a Guild X82 guitar. This is the Guild X82 Nova guitar. Features Guild X7 humbucking pickups with exposed coils. Again, so if you wanted to win this giveaway, and a lot of us did that. We want a guitar. Again, just submit your name, phone number, address, mail it in, and hopefully somebody will win it, and you'll get this guitar. So, but I haven't seen this guitar out there. Maybe it's on eBay. Now, a lot of these equipments and gear that you'll see in these magazines, you may be lucky enough to find them on eBay, either for a pretty penny or dirt cheap. But everything is pretty much on eBay. You can still buy Rockmans on eBay. Used Rockmans. So again, here's more sheet music. We'll blow by this really fast. Again, these reviews of Guitar for the Practicing Musician will go by faster because there's a lot of pages devoted to sheet music. And I encourage you, if you wanted to have the sheet music or tabs, just Google it or go to YouTube, and I'm sure you can find it. All right, so here is going to be a nice article with Judas Priest of KK Downing. So this is going to feature KK Downing. So in the future, if you wanted me to delve into this, and here's Glenn Tipton about the interview. What were they talking about back in '84? I'm sure none of these guys thought they would be still playing guitar in the 90s. They didn't know about grunge. This is '84. All the tours were getting bigger and bigger. They were getting better and better. Judas Priest in '85, '86, '87. So who could foresee 80s metal dying in '88, '89, folding down to grunge in the 90s? But it's interesting to see what they were talking about in 1984. Again, this is more interviewing KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. So if you're interested in what they're talking about, I'll be happy to devote a little 5-10 minute video to the interview. Well, I'll read it out loud to you and we can discuss it. All right, more sheet music right there. So I think that'd be cool too. So if you wanted to look, so this is Judas Priest, right? And right here, I think Randy Rhoads would have been one of the last guitarists to have achieved his own style. It was a crying shame when he died because he hadn't quite formed his own style, and you could still pick out bits of other guitarists. I think he would have been an original, though. Forgive me for reading because I'm using bifocal, so I have to like tilt my head to read. I think he would have been an original, though, if he hadn't died so tragically. And then, so this is his thoughts on Randy Rhoads. So if you want to learn more or read more about this, I'll be happy to basically read the interview with you. All right, not at you or to you, but read it with you, and then you guys can comment below. So this is pretty cool. So he's talking about Randy Rhoads in 1984, and Randy died in '82, and people are still talking about Randy Rhoads. All right, the education of Billy Zoom, and there's Billy Zoom, the guitar player for X, or bass player for X. All right, look at these guitars right here. Look, I've always liked BC Rich. I just never liked their pricings. I don't know why they're so expensive. I don't know if it's because of the wood they're using or what, but I personally would not spend that much money on a BC Rich, but I love BC Rich guitars as far as their shapes. I'm sure they play great, but I could not spend that much money on them. If they make a BC Rich, quote, junior, I'm calling it junior, like Fender has Squire and Gibson has Epiphone. All BC Rich has to do is call it the junior and make affordable versions of their models. I think they would find a market, a niche, and they would sell a lot more BC Rich guitars if they call it the BC Rich Junior. I just made that up. Maybe there is a BC Rich Junior. But if, but look at this shape. Wouldn't it be great if Firefly made this design? It would sell. It would sell like hotcakes. If Firefly made a BC Rich copy of this right there, it would totally fly. It would totally sell. I'd buy it. So here we go. Guitars, the BC Rich NJ, and strings, a custom right here. That's pretty cool. And this is cables. This is what's new for '84. All right, so we got microphones. We got electric guitar pickups, acoustic guitar pickups. All right, Tom Sawyer, a modern day warrior, me. So again, all this sheet music you can find on Google or go to YouTube. Just type it in, guitar lesson. I'm sure there's some talented guitar players out there. Endless covers, endless guitar lessons on YouTube that can show you the fingering and whatnot on how to play Tom Sawyer. Great poster here. Look at this guitar or bass right here. No headstock. I think that was like the fad. Eddie Van Halen was doing it with his guitars. And bass players were basically getting in on the action with headless basses. Even Gene Simmons of Kiss was playing a headless bass at one point. Just to say, look at me. Here he is with his famous Rickenbacker that was made popular by Chris Squire of Yes. So again, if you want to know, or if you want me to go over this article or this interview with Geddy Lee, I'd be happy to do that with you. Just say, hey Tony, talk about the interview with Geddy Lee, and then I'll do a separate video, like a 10-minute video, and we'll read the interview together. And that'd be fun. I think it would be fun. Again, so I'm just going page by page. All right, so these are the bass lines for Tom Sawyer. We can blow through this. So, all right, and these are the tablature explanations. So if you wanted to learn how to read music, you just basically, right here, definitions. These are the strings, and these are the notes, the fingerings and so forth. Tells you when to bend. So if you saw this, it means a bend. If you saw this, it means another type of bend, and so on and so on. Once you master this, you can pretty much learn music. I have no patience for music. I can't read music, so I don't do that. I don't do tabs. I don't read music. I just learn by ear. Right, so the vinyl score from The Doors, Michael Gregory, Bob Dylan, Axe. These are the albums that they're scoring, that they're rating. The Motels were good. Al Di Meola Scenario. So they're rating Al Di Meola, bottom line, not just more Di Meola solos. So this is their reviews on the albums. Mike Bloomfield. Here we go. Look, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, 1983. Hot Spots, Red Hot and Looks That Kill. Bottom line, sounds better than they look. So they're already raving about Shout at the Devil. So they're rating this album in 1984. I think it came out in 83, but I could be wrong. But Shout at the Devil. Look, performance, cartoonish, but relentless. It was a good album. I love Shout at the Devil. I love the distortion. Whatever distortion Mick Mars had, oh, it was awesome. All right, look at these back issues. Now, we just covered the Steve Howe issue. We've already covered Def Leppard, Steve Clark, and Phil Collins. We've just covered Jeff Beck, and we just covered Carlos Cavazos and Quiet Riot. So we already did January, February. Right now we're into March with Judas Priest, KK Downey, and Glenn Tipton. Remember we covered the premiere issue. See how they're saying premiere issue? Because it says so right there. The prototype issue was the Neil Sean issue. So the very first issue that I posted for this magazine was the Neil Sean one, and that was prototype. And they released a few other issues. And then it was this issue right here, the Steve Howe, where they call it the premiere. Because this is where they said, okay, this is the template now for all future magazines. So that's why we started where we did, with the prototype, with Neil Sean, and then we immediately went to the premiere issue, and now here we are. We're already well into 1984. All right, we're almost done with this. All right, so Putting the Power Chord to Work by John Sticks. Here's an article by Paul Dean. Loverboy joins Rock's Fortune 500. Now, I always, in my weird sense, thought that the guitar player for Loverboy reminded me of Brad Gillis of Ozzy Osbourne back in 1982. This is a weird guitar. I don't know if this is a custom guitar that he built or was made for him. I've never seen it anywhere else, but it's a weird looking Strat style guitar. I like it, I don't like it, but I always lean to liking it just because it's different, and I wouldn't mind having it. But it just has a weird, the horns here, obviously it's not Strat style body, but the horns are what set it apart. And look, see the horns here? It looks weird. And the pickguard's different, obviously, right? But you got the maple neck, and let's just call it mahogany body, red paint job, and that's that. But look, does that look like Brad Gillis right here? Looks like Brad Gillis in the Ozzy Osbourne era. This magazine's 84, but this reminded me of Brad Gillis. So whenever I saw Loverboy, the guitar player always had this guitar. I like the guitar, but at the same time, I don't like it. All right, more on with the guitar player of Loverboy. Loverboy is good. Just go on YouTube, type in Loverboy videos, and they got some really good hits. So, all right, now look at this. They're showcasing this guitar. It is the, you combine the Charvel Strat sound with a Taylor tremolo bridge, and they give us a 5. Excellent. And this guitar over here, this lists for $1,445. So back in March of 1984, put it this way, this is 2025. A guitar right now for $1,400 is pretty much like the going rate for like Gibsons, Epiphones, and other models in the low 1000s. But back in 1984, this Charvel at $1,400, that was expensive. But look, you got a Charvel with this, with their signature headstock, super strap body, but with a Taylor. Remember Kramer had the Floyd Rose, Ibanez had the Taylor, and now Charvel was venturing into the Taylor. Some Charvels had the regular standard Fender style tremolo, but I know Kramer had the Floyd Rose. But here's the Charvel with a Taylor, and they're listing this one at $1,445. So pretty cool. I love those guitars. Look at this, the Elliott Randall. Here's the Ibanez AD9 pedal, the MXR Series 2000 time delay pedal. Look, so they're giving us a 2. They're rating it. They're giving us a 3. Here's the Boss DM2. They're giving us a 4. So they're rating these pedals right here. And the list: old covers, Don Barris 38 Special, classic whistling songs, and whatever the hell that says. All right, and so there's giving you a glimpse of next month's issue, which is, stay tuned. You're gonna see coming next month. This will be for April. The Neil Sean, Sammy Hagar, Brian May and Friends. That was with Eddie Van Halen. Black Sabbath, Duran Duran, with words and music by Walk This Way, Aerosmith. So the sheet music is going to have Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy with Sammy Hagar, Lick It Up by Kiss, Stepping Out with Eric Clapton, and Paranoid by Black Sabbath. So they're giving you a glimpse of, hey, guess what? Next month we're going to have this sheet music, and we're going to talk about Neil Sean and Sammy Hagar and blah, 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 and Brian May and Friends. So look at this guitar. Look at that beautiful guitar. I don't know if this is an Epiphone, but it's too pointed right here to be an Epiphone or a Gibson. So I don't know what brand or model this is. That looks like a Taylor. But this is a cool ass guitar right here. It's like a Destroyer almost, but it's cool. I like it. I like this guitar right here. I don't know what this is. But alright, so I think that's it. Let me see. And there is the back cover of the issue. And there you have it. There is Guitar for the Practicing Musician, the March 1984 edition. Let me know if you've had this episode. If you have this issue of Guitar for the Practicing Musician, did you have it? Do you remember it? What are your thoughts on this issue? And again, not to go over and over again, but I would be more than happy to post a short video on these interviews, and we can go over the interviews and discuss what they were talking about. Maybe they're talking about gear, or the music scene, or their biography, or their backgrounds, or their upcoming projects. And it'd be cool to travel back in time to see what they were thinking of, what the future may hold for them. We can now look back and say, oh yeah, your future looks pretty good. Or hey, in 1988, 89, there won't be any more heavy metal. Heavy metal is going to die in 1990, 1991. So heads up. You know, if you can go back and tell them. And they're like, what? But that was the issue of March of 1984. All right, I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me here at KGTR. Any questions, comments, and feedback, leave them below. And stay tuned for more videos on guitar tones, guitar reviews, and more guitar review magazines of old vintage magazines. All right, again, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next video.